Most line of business applications have some type of menu or toolbar for the user to access the application features. For the sample application, we'll create a menu. Initially, it will contain 3 options. Clicking on the application title will activate the home state and display a welcome page. The product list option will activate the product list state and display our product list. And the Add Product option will activate the Product Edit state and display a Product Edit view for entry of a new product. We have only added the code for one state so far. Before we create the menu, let's add the Home and Product Edit states. Here we are back in WebStorm with the app.js file open. Let's add the route state for the home page first. States can be chained together, so we can just add the new state here. The state name is home. It will have a simple URL of just a slash and a template URL that references an HTML file containing the UI elements for the welcome page. We have not yet created that HTML file. We'll create it later in this module. Now it seems that this home page should really be the default page of the application, so let's change the otherwise to navigate to just the slash. Now if there isn't a valid state, or if there's no state that's been activated, it'll display the home page. Now for the edit page, we can just attach that here. As we defined in the sitemap, the state name is Product Edit. The URL syntax is just a little different here. This URL has a parameter identified with a colon prefix. The parameter is required because we want to display the edit page for one specific product, and the parameter will identify which product. On an add, the product ID will be 0, but when using the state to edit an existing product, the product ID parameter will be the ID of the product we wish to edit. The template URL references an HTML file containing the UI elements for the edit view. We have not yet created that HTML file. We'll create it later in this course. The controller property references the controller associated with this view. Because we are using the controller as syntax, we specify the as and the alias here. Now our application is configured with 3 states, one for each of the 3 menu options. We are now ready to create the menu. We want the menu to appear as part of every page of the application, so we will define it in the layout template. The layout template is in the index.html file. We'll add the menu within the body tag. Recall that the div tag here with the UI-view directive is where all of the UI templates will appear. So we want to put the menu above that. And we'll use Bootstrap to define the styles and make the menu look nice. Because there's quite a bit of code involved, I'm just going to paste it in here, and then we'll talk through it. This code uses the HTML5 nav element and the Bootstrap navbar classes. This first anchor tag contains the application name. Clicking on this link should display the welcome page. The div class containing the button is for use when the menu is displayed in a smaller form factor. You'll see what I mean in a moment when we run the application. The bottom div class displays the menu option as a list of anchor tags. Notice the I tag here. This puts a plus icon in the menu option name. Let's give this a try. So there's our menu. Look what happens when the browser is resized to a smaller form factor. Bootstrap changes the horizontal list of menu options into a drop-down list suitable for a phone or smaller device. The problem is that the drop-down list doesn't work. That's because it needs the code that is in the bootstrap.js file. We have not yet included that file in the application. Plus, the bootstrap.js file requires jQuery, so we need that too. The bootstrap.js file should have been downloaded when you downloaded Bootstrap. You can download jQuery from here. I have already downloaded both of the required files. They're here in the JS folder. We can then add a script tag for each file in index.html. So we'll go up to the top here. We'll add bootstrap.js and we'll add jQuery.js. Note that the jQuery script tag should be before the Angular tag. Now let's try running again. The drop-down list works. Notice, however, that the menu options don't work. If I resize it back to a bigger size, menu options still don't work. That's because we have not yet defined the code to activate the route states. Let's do that next. Now that the menu is in place and seems to be displaying correctly, let's activate the states. Looking at the menu options, they are all defined within anchor tags. As we discussed earlier in the slides, you can activate a state using the UI-sref directive in an anchor tag. So we'll change each menu option to specify the UI-sref directive. Let's start with the product name. In here, let's activate the state UI-sref equals, and when they click on Acme Product Management, we want to display the welcome page. Its state was called home. We want to put the state name here, not the URL. Then we can update the product list option. So we're going to add UI.sref equals, and its state was called product list. And finally, the add product. We can add the UI-sref directive. It should activate the product edit state and display the product edit view. If you recall, the product edit state requires a parameter defining which product to edit. We can specify the parameter by passing an object into the state. So here is where we define the object, and in that object we define the state. Now our state variable was product ID, and since we're creating a new one, we want that ID always to be 0 for new products. Where did that product ID come from? Well, if we go back to app.js, it was identified right here, so it has to match that name. So we're calling the product edit state, and we're providing the product ID. Let's give it a try. Notice that when the application starts, it navigates to /, which is the URL fragment identifier for the default home state. But since we have not yet created the UI for that page, nothing is displayed underneath the menu. When we click on the product list, the application navigates to /products, which is the URL fragment identifier defined for the product list state. The menu works. Now let's build that default view.